Earlier today, LA County firefighter Dennis Vineyard was shot and killed battling a blaze and
What if Edward Norton tried to have his name removed from the film? What if the director never spoke to the studio again? American History X wasn't just a brutal examination of hate. It was a production war hiding betrayals, fights, and secrets that nearly destroyed the most powerful film about racism ever made. Number 20. Edward Norton gained 30 pounds of muscle.
Danny, what the fuck are you thinking?
There's a black guy outside. He's breaking into your car.
How long's he been there?
I don't know.
In 3 months, using dangerous methods, the physical transformation that risked permanent damage, Edward Norton weighed 155 pounds when cast and needed to portray a terrifying neo-Nazi skinhead. He gained 30 pounds of pure muscle in 12 weeks using a training regimen that medical professionals later called dangerously aggressive. Here's the extreme routine. Norton trained 6 hours daily doing heavy weightlifting, consumed over 6,000 calories per day, including raw eggs and protein shakes every 2 hours, and took controversial supplements that his trainer later refused to identify. But here's the health crisis this created. During week 8, Norton collapsed on set from exhaustion and was hospitalized for severe dehydration and elevated liver enzymes. Doctors warned him that his body couldn't sustain the rapid muscle gain without serious consequences. Norton ignored medical advice and continued his regimen. Here's the detail that shocked the crew. Norton's personality changed dramatically during the transformation. Cast members described him becoming aggressive, irritable, and isolated. He later admitted the extreme diet and training affected his mental state, making him genuinely angry most of the time. Director Tony Kaye later revealed he encouraged Norton's volatile state because it made his performance as Derek more authentically threatening. But here's the permanent damage. Norton suffered a rotator cuff injury during filming that required surgery after production wrapped. He's never regained full range of motion in his left shoulder. The physical transformation that made Derek terrifying left Norton with lifelong injury. Number 19. The curb stomp scene was so disturbing that test audiences walked out.
typical how?
Well, this country's becoming a haven for criminals, so what do you expect? You know, decent, hardworking Americans.
Here's the scene that nearly destroyed the film's commercial viability. The curb stomp murder was so graphically violent that test screenings saw 30 to 40% of audiences literally walk out and not return. New Line Cinema executives panicked, believing the scene made the film unreleasable. Here's the specific feedback. Exit surveys from test screenings showed words like unwatchable, traumatizing, and made me physically ill. Multiple viewers reported nightmares after seeing it. One person vomited in the theater. New Line demanded director Tony Kaye cut the scene entirely or severely reduce its graphic nature. Kaye refused, arguing the violence needed to be shocking to show racism's true horror. But here's the studio threat. New Line told Kaye they would release the film with an NC-17 rating if he didn't cut the scene, which would call its box office potential. Kaye still refused, insisting the film needed that moment of brutal honesty. Here's the compromise that saved the scene. Edward Norton, serving as producer, negotiated to keep the curb stomp, but agreed to remove 3 seconds of the most graphic impact. The original version showed the moment of the skull breaking in more detail. The theatrical version cuts away fractionally earlier. But here's the psychological impact. Multiple film critics later cited the curb stomp as one of cinema's most disturbing moments of violence. The scene that almost got cut became the film's most memorable and controversial sequence, proving Kaye's instincts were correct despite studio terror. Number 18. Director Tony Kaye tried to replace himself with Humpty Dumpty in the credits.
Telling teacher I'm fucking cheating? Is that what's happening? I never cheated in my life.
The film is good. It begins to probe and explore. Had I been permitted to complete my...
What if the director wanted a fictional character credited instead of his own name? Tony Kaye attempted to have himself credited as Humpty Dumpty in the film's final credits after losing creative control to Edward Norton during post-production. This wasn't a joke. Kaye was completely serious and fought the studio for months over this demand. Here's the escalating insanity. When New Line refused the Humpty Dumpty credit, Kaye demanded he be credited as Alan Smithy, the traditional pseudonym for directors who disown their work. The Directors Guild rejected this because Smithy credits require proving the director lost creative control through no fault of their own. The DGA ruled that Kaye's behavior caused his own removal from editing. Here's where Kaye's protest became theatrical. He took out full-page advertisements in Variety and The Hollywood Reporter with images of himself and Humpty Dumpty, claiming New Line had shattered his artistic vision. He organized protests outside New Line's offices with actors dressed as fairy tale characters. He hired a plane to fly a banner over the studio lot reading, "Ask New Line why they broke Humpty Dumpty." But here's the cost of his rebellion. Kaye spent over $100,000 of his own money on the bizarre protest campaign. He hired a publicist specifically to generate media coverage of his fight with the studio. Here's the ultimate failure. New Line ignored all protests and released the film with Kaye's real name in the credits. The Directors Guild fined him $25,000 for violating guild rules about public disparagement of productions. Kaye's theatrical rebellion accomplished nothing except damaging his reputation. Number 17. Edward Norton Recut. The entire film against the director's wishes.
Spare change for a veteran?
Vietnam?
Yes.
It's not your fault, son. You've been fucked by the system.
Here's the editing war that created two completely different films. Tony Kaye delivered his director's cut with a linear chronological structure showing Derek's past before his present-day story. Test audiences found it confusing and dramatically flat. New Line gave Edward Norton, serving as producer, permission to recut the film without Kaye's involvement, or approval. Here's the massive restructuring Norton implemented. He created the intercut flashback structure, where present and past are woven together, making the narrative non-linear. He reordered dozens of scenes, changed the opening to start with Danny's essay rather than Derek's release from prison, and completely rearranged the emotional arc. Kaye's version was 2 hours and 12 minutes. Norton's version was 1 hour and 59 minutes. Here's the footage Norton cut. Approximately 40 minutes of material Kaye considered essential was removed, including extended scenes of Derek in prison, longer sequences showing the Venice Beach community, and an entire subplot about Derek's relationship with his mother. Norton also removed several graphic violence sequences that he felt were exploitative rather than meaningful. But here's the betrayal that destroyed their relationship. Norton made these changes without consulting Kaye and presented the new cut directly to New Line executives. Kaye only learned his film had been recut when the studio called to tell him they were proceeding with Norton's version. Here's the comparison. When both cuts were shown to test audiences, Norton's version tested 34% higher. The studio went with Norton's edit, and Kaye never forgave him. Number 16. The swastika tattoo took 4 hours to apply daily and was partially real.
You okay?
Yeah, just gives me one.
You gotta call offense on that shit, Derek.
What if Edward Norton's Nazi tattoo was partially permanent? The massive swastika tattoo on Norton's chest was a combination of temporary theatrical makeup and actual temporary tattoos that lasted weeks between applications. Here's why they used this hybrid approach. Pure makeup would sweat off under hot lights within hours and couldn't maintain detail in shirtless scenes. The production needed something more permanent that could survive multiple takes and physical action. But here's the application process. Each morning, makeup artist Matthew Mungle spent 4 hours applying the tattoo, using a combination of airbrush makeup and temporary tattoo transfers. The swastika itself was a high-quality temporary tattoo that lasted 2 to 3 weeks. The surrounding tribal designs and script were hand-painted daily. Norton had to arrive on set at 4:30 a.m. every filming day just for a tattoo application. Here's the psychological toll. Norton later revealed that wearing a swastika on his chest for months affected his mental health. He felt contaminated and wrong, looking at himself in mirrors. He showered immediately after filming each day, trying to scrub off what remained of the makeup, often causing skin irritation. But here's the controversy nobody anticipated. The temporary tattoo portions of the design were so realistic that Norton couldn't appear in public without a shirt during filming. He was staying at a hotel in Los Angeles and had to cover up completely when using the pool because other guests complained about the Nazi imagery. Hotel management asked him to leave, not believing he was an actor in a film. Number 15. Beverly D'Angelo was almost fired for defending Edward Norton against the director.
Go again. I love this part. This is great.
Well, look at the way that they scapegoated Chief Gates. I mean, you tell me they would have come down that hard on Black Willie Williams. No way.
Pass the ball.
Here's the loyalty conflict that nearly cost an actress her job. Beverly D'Angelo publicly sided with Edward Norton during his editing disputes with Tony Kaye, telling the director his original cut was dramatically incoherent. Kaye responded by trying to have her fired from the production and replaced with another actress. Here's the escalation. D'Angelo had filmed approximately 60% of her scenes when she made her comments supporting Norton's creative decisions. Kaye told New Line executives that D'Angelo's betrayal made it impossible for him to continue directing her. He demanded she be replaced or he would walk off the production. But here's the studio's impossible position. Firing D'Angelo would require reshooting all her completed scenes at a cost of over $1 million. But losing Kaye might mean shutting down the entire production. New Line chose to keep D'Angelo and work around Kaye's refusal to direct her. Here's the bizarre solution. For the remaining 40% of D'Angelo's scenes, assistant directors gave her blocking and line readings, while Kaye refused to speak to her directly. In several scenes, D'Angelo is reacting to directions given by other people, while Kaye sat in his chair ignoring her. The tension is visible in her performance, creating an authentic discomfort that actually worked for the character. But here's the cost to their relationship. D'Angelo and Kaye have never spoken since filming Wrapped. When the film premiered, they walked separate red carpets and avoided each other at the after party. D'Angelo later said, defending Norton was morally correct, but professionally costly, as Kaye attempted to damage her reputation in Hollywood. Number 14. The prison rape scene was filmed but cut after controversy.
Go again. I love this part. This is great.
Well, look at the way that they scapegoated Chief Gates. I mean, you tell me they would have come down that hard on Black Willie Williams. No way.
Pass the ball.
Here's the deleted scene that would have made the film even more controversial. Tony Kaye filmed a graphic prison rape scene, showing Derek being violently assaulted as punishment for refusing to associate with the Aryan Brotherhood. The scene was 4 minutes long and extremely disturbing. Test audiences reacted so negatively that New Line executives immediately ordered it cut from all versions of the film. Here's the specific intention. Kaye wanted to show Derek experiencing the violence he'd inflicted on others, using a sexual assault as the ultimate violation that breaks his ideology. The scene was written to be Derek's turning point, where he realizes the brutality of the world he'd embraced. But here's the overwhelming rejection. Test screening feedback cards were almost unanimously negative about the rape scene. Comments included gratuitous, exploitative, crossing the line, and made for shock value, not story value. Mental health advocates who previewed the film warned that the scene could be triggering for assault survivors. Here's the editorial decision. Edward Norton argued the RAP scene was unnecessary because Derek's transformation could be shown through his friendship with Lamont without needing sexual violence. The scene was removed entirely from his recut version. Here's what remains. If you watch carefully, there are contextual references suggesting Derek was assaulted in prison, even though it's not shown. His fear and vulnerability in certain prison scenes were filmed after the rape sequence and contain remnants of that narrative. The deleted footage was reportedly destroyed to prevent it from ever being released, though rumors persist that a copy exists in Kaye's personal archive. Number 13. Fairuza Balk stayed in character between takes and terrorized the crew.
My fucking house! Get up!
What if the actress playing a white supremacist was genuinely frightening on set? Fairuza Balk used extreme method acting for her role, remaining in character as a hostile neo-Nazi between takes and creating an atmosphere of real tension that made crew members uncomfortable. Here's the specific behavior. Balk would use racial slurs in conversation with crew members, claiming she needed to stay in the mindset. She refused to eat lunch with non-white cast and crew, sitting alone or only with other actors playing skinheads. She wore a swastika armband around the set between takes until production managers forced her to remove it. But here's where her method became problematic. Multiple crew members filed complaints with production supervisors about Balk's behavior, claiming her constant character work created a hostile environment. Actor Guy Torry, who played Lamont, later revealed that Balk refused to speak to him off camera for the entire production, making their working relationship profoundly uncomfortable. Here's Tony Kaye's response. He encouraged Balk's behavior, believing the authentic tension improved the film's atmosphere. He told crew members who complained that they needed to understand the immersion process. But here's the line that was crossed. During the Venice Beach scene filming, Balk allegedly made racist comments to actual black residents who were watching the production. Police were called after a confrontation, though no charges were filed. Here's the aftermath. Balk later apologized for her approach, admitting she took the method acting way too far and caused real harm. She's never used that extreme level of immersion again in any subsequent role. Number 12. The basketball court scene was improvised after the original script version failed.
You okay?
Yeah, just give me some water. You gotta call offense on that shit, Dare. Not on game point, Danny.
Here's the scene that was completely reinvented during filming. The Venice Beach basketball court confrontation was originally scripted as a brief argument that quickly escalated to violence. But when Tony Kaye filmed the scripted version, it felt rushed and unmotivated. He decided to reshoot it with mostly improvised dialogue. Here's the new approach. Kaye gathered Edward Norton, Ethan Suplee, and the black actors playing the basketball players. He gave them the basic scenario. Skinheads want the court, black players refuse, then let them improvise the escalating confrontation. The scene was filmed in one continuous 7-minute take with 3 cameras capturing different angles. But here's the authentic tension this created. The actors weren't following a script, so genuine unpredictability entered their performances. When Norton's Derek makes his racist challenge about the basketball game, the anger in the black actors' responses is partly real frustration with having to hear that language. The improvisational nature made everyone genuinely uncomfortable in ways that benefited the scene. Here's the controversy that followed. The black actors involved in the scene later expressed mixed feelings about the improvisation. Some felt it allowed authentic reactions. Others felt it put them in the position of experiencing racism for entertainment without adequate preparation or support. Here's the result. The improvised basketball scene became one of the film's most tense and realistic moments. The scripted version was completely abandoned, but the ethical questions about asking black actors to improvise responses to racism without warning remained unresolved. Number 11. The film's budget nearly doubled due to Tony Kaye's perfectionism.
Because it's better than the pig I just tried to fuck.
What's up, man?
What if the director's obsession with perfection nearly bankrupted the production? American History X was budgeted at $10 million, but ended up costing over $20 million due to Tony Kaye's relentless demands for perfection. New Line Cinema executives were furious about the overruns, but felt trapped because they had already invested so much. Here's the specific extravagance. Kaye insisted on shooting in black and white for the flashback sequences, which cost significantly more than color because it required special film stock and processing. He demanded 40 to 60 takes of individual shots until he achieved exactly what he wanted. The production burned through film at 3 times the projected rate. But here's where costs exploded. Kaye's perfectionism meant falling behind schedule almost immediately. The film was supposed to shoot for 45 days. It took 87 days. Every day over schedule cost approximately $130,000 in crew salaries, equipment rentals, and location fees. Here's the calculation that horrified the studio. The production overages totaled $10.3 million, literally doubling the budget. New Line executives considered shutting down production multiple times, but feared losing their entire investment. Here's Kay's justification. He argued the film's subject matter demanded absolute perfection and that rushing would compromise its power. He claimed the overages were necessary investments in quality, but here's the financial reality. The budget overruns meant American History X needed to earn over $60 million to break even after marketing costs. It earned approximately $6.7 million domestically, making it a significant financial loss despite critical acclaim. Number 10. Edward Furlong was using hard substance during filming and nearly died from an overdose.
Sad. Hey man, you going to Camp's party tonight?
The Venus ass watertight.
You're fun.
Here's the addiction crisis that was hidden from the public. Edward Furlong was actively using heroin and cocaine during production, and his drug problem escalated to the point where he overdosed and was hospitalized during the 4th week of filming. The production shut down for 3 days while Furlong recovered. Here's what made his addiction visible. Furlong would arrive on set clearly intoxicated, with slurred speech and difficulty focusing. His weight dropped dramatically during filming, losing over 20 pounds from an already thin frame. Makeup artists had to work extensively to hide the physical deterioration. But here's the crisis that almost killed him. Furlong overdosed in his trailer between takes. A production assistant found him unconscious and not breathing. Paramedics administered Narcan and rushed him to the hospital. He was clinically dead for approximately 45 seconds before being revived. Here's the studio's response. New Line executives wanted to fire Furlong and replace him with another actor. Tony Kaye refused, arguing that Furlong's vulnerability and pain made his performance authentic. Edward Norton personally intervened, promising to monitor Furlong and ensure he stayed sober enough to work. But here's the solution that barely worked. The production hired a sober companion who stayed with Furlong 24 hours a day for the remainder of filming. Norton would personally drive Furlong to and from the set to prevent drug access. Despite these measures, Furlong continued using, just more carefully. Here's the tragic legacy. Furlong's Danny performance is heartbreaking, partly because his own self-destruction was happening simultaneously. The vulnerability audiences saw was genuine desperation from an addict spiraling. Number 9. The dinner table scene was filmed in 122-minute take.
Sit down, shut your mouth. No! God damn it, Derek! Sit down, shut your mouth, and give your girlfriend some respect.
Derek! Needs to be in the tradition of good tragic drama, I think. He needs to be a larger-than-life character. He needs to be...
What if one of cinema's most intense scenes was performed without any cuts? The dinner table argument where Derek erupts at his family was filmed as a single unbroken 22-minute take, with 4 cameras capturing different angles. Tony Kaye refused to shoot it with traditional coverage, insisting the scene needed to build tension through uninterrupted performance. Here's the preparation that made it possible. The actors rehearsed the entire scene for 3 full days before filming. Every line, every movement, every emotional beat was choreographed precisely. The camera operators practiced their movements to avoid appearing in each other's frames. The lighting crew designed a rig that allowed cameras to move freely without visible equipment. But here's the pressure this created. If any actor flubbed a line or missed a mark 20 minutes into the take, they had to start completely over. The Walby scene was attempted 9 times before achieving a complete successful take. Here's the physical toll. By the 9th attempt, Edward Norton was genuinely exhausted and emotional, which made his explosive rage even more authentic. The other actors were similarly drained, creating real tension that enhanced the scene. But here's the detail that made it brilliant. The continuous take meant actors had to sustain emotional intensity for over 20 minutes without breaks. You can see them building genuine anger and frustration as the scene progresses. Here's the editorial choice. In the final film, the scene is only 8 minutes long, meaning 14 minutes of the 22-minute take was cut, but performing it as one continuous piece gave it an authentic escalation that couldn't be achieved with traditional editing. Number 8. The film's ending was rewritten 5 times after test. Audiences rejected every version.
Everyone knew the theatrical release was far from what he had in mind, and years of Chinese whispers relating to Tony Kaye's initial intentions led many of the...
Here's the ending that nobody could figure out. The final scene where Danny is collied in the school bathroom was the 5th completely different ending, filmed after test audiences rejected 4 previous versions. Each ending cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to shoot, and none satisfied viewers until the final attempt. Here's the ending. Derek arrives at school just in time to save Danny from being shot, reinforcing hope and redemption. Test audiences called it unrealistic and too convenient. Here's ending 2. Derek is killed instead of Danny, showing that racism's cycle claims everyone. Audiences hated it, calling it nihilistic and punishing the wrong character. Here's the ending 3. Both Derek and Danny survive, but the film ends with them watching another hate crime happen, suggesting the cycle continues despite their personal growth. Test audiences found it confusing and anticlimactic. Ending 4 had Danny survive being shot but left in critical condition, his fate unknown. Audiences wanted closure. Here's the final version. Danny dies suddenly and meaninglessly, with Derek arriving seconds too late. His essay about change is read in voiceover, showing that Danny understood the message but was killed anyway by the cycle of hate. This ending tested significantly higher because it didn't offer false hope while still showing Danny's intellectual transformation. But here's the cost. Filming 5 different endings required bringing back the entire cast and crew multiple times, rebuilding the school bathroom set 3 times, and spending over $2 million just on the final sequence. The ending that appears in the film was shot 4 weeks after principal photography wrapped. Number 7. Tony Kaye hired the Dalai Lama's monk as a mediator during his studio fight.
To edit and alter the film, increasing the role of his own performance while decreasing...
8 out of 10 movie directors in this town on every film they make. It's just that they're prepared to take it, they play the game a little better than I do.
Tony was spoke about not having...
What if the director brought spiritual leaders into his contract dispute? During his battle with New Line over the final cut, Tony Kaye hired a Tibetan Buddhist monk who advised the Dalai Lama to serve as mediator between himself and studio executives. This actually happened. The monk attended studio meetings wearing traditional robes while Kaye argued about artistic vision. Here's the specific claim. Kaye told executives that the Dalai Lama himself had blessed his director's cut and that Buddhist philosophy supported his position. New Line executives were baffled and irritated by the spiritual manipulation. They refused to engage with the monk, calling Kaye's tactics absurd theater. But here's where Kaye escalated further. He organized a Buddhist prayer ceremony outside New Line's headquarters, where monks chanted for the studio to find compassion for art. He invited the media to cover the event, creating a spectacle that embarrassed the studio. He claimed he was on a spiritual quest for creative truth, rather than a standard contract dispute. Here's the financial cost of his antics. Kaye paid the monks thousands of dollars to participate in his protest performances. He spent over $50,000 on what he called spiritual mediation services. But here's the result. New Line ignored all of Kaye's theatrical protests and proceeded with Edward Norton's cut. The monks returned to Tibet. Kaye's bizarre spiritual campaign became Hollywood legend, but accomplished nothing except making him appear unstable. Multiple studios later refused to work with Kaye, citing his Buddhist mediator incident as evidence of his difficult nature. His career never recovered from the controversy. Number 6. The black and white cinematography was accidental after a camera malfunction.
To edit and alter the film, increasing the role of his own performance while decreasing...
8 out of 10 movie directors in this town on every film they make. It's just that they're prepared to take it, they play the game a little better than I do.
Tony was spoke about not having...
Here's the aesthetic choice that was actually a technical disaster. The film's iconic black and white flashback structure wasn't Tony Kaye's original plan. The first week of flashback filming used color, but a camera malfunction destroyed all the footage, forcing Kaye to reshoot in black and white due to time constraints. Here's what happened. the film magazine on the primary camera leaked, exposing the film to light and destroying an entire week's worth of footage. 7 days of filming, showing Derek's descent into racism, were completely unusable. Insurance covered the monetary loss, but the production didn't have time in the schedule to reshoot everything identically. Here's Kay's desperate solution. He decided to shoot the reshoots in black and white to visually distinguish them from the existing color footage of the present day. This made the lost footage less of a disaster, because it would look intentionally different anyway. But here's the creative breakthrough. When Kay saw the black and white footage, he realized it was more powerful than the color version. The absence of color made the violence more stark and the emotions more raw. He decided to shoot all remaining flashbacks in black and white, but here's the cost. Black and white film stock in 1997 was specialty material that cost significantly more than standard color. The conversion to black and white added approximately $700,000 to the budget. Here's the irony that made it iconic. The film's most praised aesthetic choice, the black and white past contrasting with color present, was born from equipment failure and budget compromise. Critics called it brilliant visual storytelling. It was actually Kay making the best of a technical disaster. Number 5. Edward Norton wrote scenes for himself that weren't in the original script.
You know what that smells like, right? Come on, man, don't tell me this smell doesn't remind you of a woman.
You know what I want to hear, asshole?
You mean that shit about your mother, man?
You want to get fucking beaten, Danny?
What if the star rewrote his own character without permission? Edward Norton, serving as producer, wrote approximately 35 pages of additional scenes for Derek that weren't in David McKenna's original screenplay. Norton added these scenes during filming without informing the screenwriter or getting official approval. Here's the specific material Norton created. The extended conversations between Derek and Lamont in prison were mostly Norton's writing. The scene where Derek realizes the Aryan Brotherhood deals drugs with minorities was Norton's creation. Multiple moments showing Derek's intellectual awakening were Norton expanding on brief script directions. But here's the controversy. David McKenna only discovered Norton had rewritten portions of the script when he saw the film at its premiere. He was furious that Norton received no writing credit while adding significant material. The Writers Guild investigated the situation after McKenna filed a complaint. Here's the Guild's ruling. Norton's contributions were considered performance additions rather than formal rewrites because they were improvisations during filming that happened to be extensive. McKenna retained sole screenplay credit, but Norton was never penalized for his uncredited writing. But here's the creative truth. Multiple critics specifically praised Derek's character development and complexity, unknowingly responding to Norton's unauthorized additions. The moments they cited as the script's strongest writing were scenes Norton created on set without McKenna's knowledge. Here's the legacy. Norton's secret rewriting improved the film, but created a precedent of actors changing scripts without proper credit. The Writers Guild later created stricter rules about performance improvisation versus actual rewriting. Number 4. The shaving scene was real, and Edward Norton cut himself multiple times.
Alright, because the last guy they sent me didn't wear no drawers, couldn't read the sizes in the drawers, and used to sniff the drawers, alright?
That's it. Now say goodnight.
Here's the moment that was genuinely dangerous. The scene where Derek shaves his head in prison used a real straight razor, and Edward Norton actually cut himself 3 times during filming because he insisted on performing it himself without a safety razor. Here's Tony Kaye's original plan. Use a prop razor with a retractable blade for safety. Norton refused, arguing the audience would sense it wasn't real. He demanded an actual straight razor despite safety coordinators warning against it. But here's the risk Norton took. Straight razors are extremely dangerous in inexperienced hands. Norton had never used one before and was shaving his own head while looking in a mirror, meaning his perspective was reversed. On the first take, he cut his scalp badly enough to require bandaging before continuing. Here's the detail that made it worse. Norton insisted on doing multiple takes to get the performance right. He cut himself on takes 2 and 4 as well. By take 7, which appears in the film, Norton's hands were shaking from adrenaline and fear, which actually enhanced the vulnerability of the moment. But here's the aftermath. The set medic had to treat Norton between every take, After filming, Norton required 7 stitches for the scalp cuts. The production's insurance company investigated and fined New Line Cinema $47,000 for allowing an unsafe practice. Here's Norton's justification. He claimed the genuine fear and pain made his performance authentic in a way that couldn't be faked. The scene is powerful partly because Norton is actually navigating real danger, but safety experts later cited it as an example of method acting going dangerously far. Number 3. The film was almost rated NC-17 and had to remove 6 minutes of violence.
Spent $3 billion last year on services for those people who had no right to be here in the first place. $3 billion. Liberty, it says, give me you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. It does not say, give me you're shiftless, you're greedy.
What if the film you saw was significantly toned down? The original cut submitted to the MPAA received an NC-17 rating for excessive brutal violence. New Line had to remove 6 minutes and 22 seconds of graphic content to achieve an R rating, fundamentally changing the film's impact. Here's what was cut. Extended footage during the curb stomp showing more explicit gore, a longer version of the grocery store shooting with additional blood and suffering, extended neo-Nazi violence during the flashback party, multiple seconds trimmed from Derek beating his sister's boyfriend. Here's the MPAA's specific language. They ruled the violence was too realistic and sustained to be appropriate for an R rating. The board was particularly concerned about the curb stomp being instructional about how to call someone, potentially creating liability if someone imitated it. But here's the negotiation. New Line had to cut the 6 minutes without changing the narrative structure. Editors had to carefully trim frames and seconds from multiple violent scenes rather than removing entire sequences. The cuts were so precise that most viewers never noticed the missing material. Here's the version that almost existed. Tony Kaye's director's cut included all the removed violence and was genuinely harder to watch. Test audiences for the uncut version had even higher walkout rates. But here's the irony. The theatrical version is still one of the most violent mainstream films ever made. The fact that 6 additional minutes existed shows how far Kaye originally pushed boundaries. The MPAA's required cuts probably made the film more commercially viable while preserving its brutal impact. Number 2. Edward Norton and Tony Kaye fistfight in the editing room and had to be separated. Here's the fight that ended their relationship forever. Edward. Norton and Tony Kaye got into a physical altercation in the editing room when Kaye discovered Norton had been secretly recutting the film. The fight had to be broken up by security guards and both sustained injuries. Here's how the confrontation started. Kaye arrived at the New Line editing facility unannounced and found Norton working with editors on a version of the film without his knowledge or permission. Kaye began screaming at Norton, accusing him of theft and betrayal. Norton responded by defending his right as producer to protect the film. Here's when it became physical. Witnesses reported that Kaye pushed Norton first, shoving him away from the editing console. Norton shoved back. The confrontation escalated to punches being thrown. Kaye allegedly struck Norton in the face. Norton grabbed Kaye and they fell to the floor fighting. Security guards had to physically pull them apart. But here's the injuries. Norton sustained a black eye and split lip. Kaye injured his hand punching Norton and required medical attention for a fractured knuckle. Both men filed police reports against each other, but later dropped charges at the studio's insistence. Here's New Line's response. The studio banned Kaye from the editing facility permanently and obtained a restraining order preventing him from coming within 500 feet of Norton. All remaining post-production was completed without the director's involvement. But here's the permanent damage. Norton and Kaye have never spoken since the fight. When asked about it in interviews, both refused to discuss details. The physical altercation that destroyed their relationship became Hollywood legend, but remains partially mysterious. Number 1. The film lost money, but changed cinema's approach to racism forever.
You look nice.
Thank you.
How do I look?
Here's the ultimate paradox of American History X. The film lost approximately $13 million at the box office, but became one of the most influential films about racism ever made, fundamentally changing how Hollywood approached the subject. Here's the financial disaster. The film cost $20 million to produce and approximately $15 million to market. It earned only $6.7 million domestically and another $4.1 million internationally, totaling $10.8 million worldwide. By Hollywood accounting, it lost between $12 and $14 million. New Line Cinema considered it a significant financial failure, but here's the cultural impact that transcended commercial failure. American History X became required viewing in schools and universities across America. Sociology and film studies courses adopted it as a curriculum. The film sparked national conversations about racism, redemption, and cycles of violence. It made Edward Norton a serious dramatic actor and proved films about uncomfortable subjects could achieve artistic excellence. Here's the long-term vindication. Home video sales eventually earned back the theatrical losses. The film found its audience on DVD and later streaming, where it became one of the most watched dramas of the late 90s. Multiple surveys of filmmakers cite it as influential on subsequent films about racism, including Crash, The Believer, and Detroit. But here's the industry lesson. Hollywood learned that films about racism could achieve critical acclaim and cultural significance without commercial success. American History X proved that financial failure doesn't mean artistic failure. The film that lost millions became priceless as a cultural document. Its box office disaster became irrelevant compared to its permanent impact on cinema and society's conversation about hate. There you have it, 20 secrets about American History X that even Derek Vineyard never knew. Which revelation shocked you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more buried movie secrets. Until next time, remember that the past defines us, but doesn't have to confine us.